Madison stood at the gates of Charleston Academy, a place her father had dreamed of sending her to since she was a child. She walked through the imposing doors, her heart pounding with anticipation and a touch of fear. The polished floors, grand staircases, and ornate walls radiated prestige, yet she felt an unsettling chill. She had wanted to make her father proud, to live up to the dreams he had for her future, but something about the place felt off. Her first class was biology. Sitting quietly at her desk, Madison tried to focus as other students filled the room. She caught their glances, quick, assessing, and judgmental. The bell rang, and a tall, severe-looking woman entered. Miss Harding, her biology teacher, surveyed the class with an icy stare. When her gaze fell on Madison, it lingered, narrowing slightly as if already disappointed. "We have a new student today," Miss Harding announced, her voice devoid of warmth. Madison Gray. The class's attention turned to her in unison, their expressions neutral, but their eyes filled with something darker, curiosity mixed with disdain. Madison's cheeks warmed, and she managed a faint smile, hoping to mask her unease. As Miss Harding began her lecture, Madison struggled to concentrate, feeling each glance and whisper dig deeper into her nerves. She tried her best to stay unnoticed, but each word from her teacher seemed barbed, directed at her. When Madison stammered over an answer to a question, Miss Harding didn't hide her disapproval. "If you want to survive here, Madison, you'll need to do better than that," she said, her voice cold and cutting. Madison sank lower in her seat, feeling the sting of embarrassment and a creeping sense of dread. When the day ended, she felt an overwhelming relief, but the journey home was filled with doubt. She wanted to tell her father how difficult her day had been, but she couldn't bear to disappoint him. Instead, she forced a smile and said, "It was good," hiding the sadness that weighed on her heart. In the days that followed, Madison's sense of isolation deepened. Her classmates' glances turned into whispers, and the silent disapproval grew louder. She had entered Charleston Academy full of hope, but each day chipped away at her confidence, leaving her feeling small and insignificant. Miss Harding seemed to relish in Madison's discomfort. Whenever Madison stumbled over a question or couldn't quite keep up, the teacher made sure to highlight her mistakes. It felt like Miss Harding had a personal mission to expose every flaw Madison had, to reinforce that she didn't belong here. Her interactions with her classmates weren't any better. A girl named Chloe and her friends made it their duty to cross paths with her, each encounter an opportunity to whisper a mocking remark or deliver a subtle shove. "Watch it, Gray," Chloe sneered one day, bumping Madison's shoulder as they passed in the hallway. Madison bit back her frustration, holding on to her books tightly, willing herself not to react. The relentless mockery and bullying began to take its toll. At home, her father greeted her with his usual warmth, asking about her day with such pride in his eyes. But each time she forced herself to smile, pretending that everything was fine. She couldn't bring herself to tell him the truth. Not when he'd sacrificed so much to send her here. But each night, as Madison lay in bed, the day's memories haunted her. She replayed every taunt, every cruel glance, and every unkind laugh, feeling the weight of it grow heavier on her heart. She tried to tell herself that things would improve, that she'd find a way to fit in, yet a small part of her couldn't shake the fear that the worst was yet to come. Madison's heart beat faster as she stood at the front of the class, her hands trembling slightly as she held the small stuffed animal Miss Harding had handed her. It was just a demonstration, a practice lesson in wound care, something that should have been simple. But with Miss Harding, nothing ever felt simple. Her icy gaze bored into Madison, and the tension in the room was palpable. The other students shifted in their seats, watching with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed anticipation. "Today, discipline is our focus," Miss Harding announced, holding up a pair of electric clippers. Her voice was calm but carried an unmistakable edge. Precision and control are crucial in a place like this. Her eyes lingered on Madison, her expression almost predatory. Madison's chest tightened as Miss Harding stepped forward, the clippers humming ominously in her hand. "Hold still, Madison," she said, her tone both commanding and cold. Madison's instincts screamed at her to move, but she was frozen, caught in the teacher's calculated gaze. And then, with a quick, deliberate motion, Miss Harding brought the clippers to Madison's head, buzzing a small section of her hair with the same mechanical detachment, as if she were practicing on a mannequin. The vibration filled Madison's head, and in an instant, she felt the sharp absence of her hair, the cool air prickling against the newly shaved skin. The silence was deafening. A few gasps broke through the quiet, followed by muffled laughter that Madison couldn't ignore. She reached up, touching the uneven patch, her fingers trembling as she felt the raw exposure. Her cheeks burned with shame, her mind reeling with disbelief. How could this be happening? How could someone humiliate her so easily, and so openly? "Consider it a lesson in discipline," Miss Harding said, turning off the clippers and giving a small, satisfied smirk as she looked down at Madison. Her words sliced through Madison's heart, each one heavy with humiliation and authority. Madison barely heard the mocking laughter from her classmates, the snickers and whispers spreading through the room like wildfire. She kept her head down, her face flushed and her throat tight, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. But inside, she felt shattered, every ounce of her self-worth slipping away. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Madison couldn't focus on anything, her mind haunted by the sound of the clippers, the cruel satisfaction in Miss Harding's voice, and the smirks on her classmates' faces. She felt like an outsider, exposed and vulnerable, as if everyone could see her deepest fears and insecurities. By the time the final bell rang, Madison could barely keep herself together. When she finally walked through her front door, her father's warm greeting was too much to bear. She forced a quick smile, muttering something about having a lot of homework before hurrying to her room. Closing the door, she finally let the tears she had held back all day fall. She felt trapped, alone, and helpless, with no one to turn to, until that moment when she decided she couldn't face it alone any longer. The following days were a haze of humiliation and dread for Madison. Every step down Charleston Academy's pristine hallways felt like an ordeal, her head lowered as she braced herself for mocking stares and whispered taunts. Her classmates seemed to revel in her vulnerability, and she caught snippets of laughter and murmured words. "Weak. Can't handle it. What a joke." Each word clung to her heart like a weight, dragging her down. But the worst torment came not from her peers, but from herself. She felt exposed and raw, like a wound that refused to heal. At home, her father was her only respite, his warm, unwavering support a beacon in her dark days. Yet the thought of telling him about her suffering felt impossible. How could she burden him with the pain of knowing that his dream school, the place he had worked so hard to send her, was where she was being broken down day by day? But with each passing day, Madison felt the ache grow unbearable. The silence had become its own form of torment. That evening, sitting at the dinner table, she felt her hands tremble as her father asked his usual question. "How was your day, Maddie?" The nickname, so full of warmth and love, brought tears to her eyes. "Dad," she began, her voice barely a whisper, her heart pounding with fear and shame. She looked down, unable to meet his eyes. "There's something I need to tell you." Her voice quivered, the weight of the secret she'd held finally pressing her to release it. Her father's brow furrowed, his expression softening with concern. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" he asked, his tone gentle but laced with worry. Madison took a shaky breath, feeling the words start to spill out in a flood. She told him everything. She spoke of Miss Harding's relentless criticisms, of how the teacher would single her out and scrutinize her with cold eyes, waiting for her to stumble. She described the cruel whispers and mocking glances from her classmates, the times she'd been shoved or laughed at in the hallways, and the hateful note that had been left in her locker. Her father's expression grew darker with every word, his fists clenched on the table. But Madison had yet to reveal the worst, the moment that had shattered her completely. Her voice faltered as she recounted the biology class incident, how Miss Harding had taken the clippers to her hair, stripping her of her dignity in front of everyone. She looked away, too ashamed to meet his gaze, feeling the burn of fresh tears on her cheeks. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Madison could feel her father's simmering anger, a fierce, protective anger she had never seen in him before. Finally, he reached across the table, taking her hand in his grip steady and reassuring. "I'm so sorry, Maddie," he whispered, his voice thick with sorrow and anger. "I had no idea. They had no right to treat you this way." He squeezed her hand, his expression one of fierce resolve. "Tomorrow, we're going to the school and we're going to put an end to this. No one, not even your teacher, has the right to make you feel this way." His words washed over Madison like a balm, easing the pain she'd held inside for so long. In that moment, she felt a glimmer of hope, a fragile but undeniable belief that she wasn't alone in this fight. Her father's strength filled her with a sense of peace, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to feel the comforting warmth of his love and support. That night, Madison lay in bed, replaying the conversation in her mind. Her father's promise to stand by her, to protect her, wrapped around her like a blanket, shielding her from the memories that had haunted her nights. She knew the road ahead would still be difficult, but now, with her father by her side, she felt a renewed strength within herself, a strength that would carry her through whatever lay ahead. The next morning, Madison and her father arrived at Charleston Academy, her father's expression resolute as they walked through the imposing doors. Madison's heart pounded, a mixture of anxiety and fragile hope coursing through her. She glanced at her father, drawing strength from his unwavering presence. Today would be different. Today, she would no longer face this battle alone. They were led to a small conference room where Mr. Browning, the principal, waited alongside Miss Harding. The air was tense, and Madison's skin prickled with apprehension as she took her seat. Her father's voice, calm yet firm, filled the room as he recounted everything Madison had told him the night before, from the relentless singling out in class to the humiliating incident with the clippers. Each word he spoke was laced with a quiet fury, the anger of a father whose child had been wronged. Miss Harding sat across from them, her face cool and expressionless. "Mr. Gray, I assure you I maintain high standards for all my students," she interjected, her tone clipped. "This school is demanding, and not every student adjusts to its rigor." Madison felt a fresh wave of anger rise within her, but her father's hand on her shoulder steadied her. He looked directly at Miss Harding, his voice low and controlled. "My daughter deserves respect. What you did to her was not discipline, it was humiliation." Mr. Browning, visibly uncomfortable, shifted in his seat. "We are committed to creating a safe environment for all students," he began cautiously. "I think it's clear we need to investigate these claims further." The tension in the room was thick, but Madison felt a surge of validation. They couldn't ignore her story. Her father had forced them to confront the truth. In the following days, Charleston Academy was abuzz with the investigation. Miss Harding was placed on leave, and announcements about new policies against bullying and respect for students' rights echoed through the halls. Madison noticed the shift immediately. Her classmates' once mocking stares now held a quiet respect, even awe. The girl they had once looked down upon had become a symbol of resilience. But the greatest change was within herself. Madison joined a new student-led initiative, speaking openly about her experience and helping others find the courage to stand up against mistreatment. She found herself surrounded by classmates who had once been silent bystanders, now allies in creating a more inclusive school. One afternoon, Emma, a quiet girl from biology, approached her. "Thank you, Madison," she said softly, her voice filled with sincerity. "What you did, it's made a difference, for all of us." Madison's heart swelled with gratitude. Her journey had been filled with pain, but standing up had created something beautiful, a community of support, built on courage and understanding. At home, her father embraced her, pride shining in his eyes. "You've shown them what strength looks like, Maddie. You've shown them what it means to believe in yourself." As she walked through the doors of Charleston Academy each day, Madison felt lighter, her shoulders unburdened by fear. She had found her voice, her strength, and a newfound purpose. No longer the girl who once felt invisible, she was Madison Gray, a fighter, a friend, and a force for change, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our latest videos. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Thank you all for taking the time to watch, and see you in the next video.